Okay, so I, 26 female, have a toddler son. His dad, 28 male, and I split when he was an infant. My ex's mom started pressuring him to be involved. That's when he threatened to take me to court. Fast forward and our son had a birthday, and our court date finally came. He asked for full custody, and it was denied. He ended up getting supervised visitation 3 days out of the week for an hour. He had to do parental classes, and they would slowly transition our son to spending more time with him. He was also told to only communicate with me if it involved our son. He wasn't happy with this, and neither was his mom. So he didn't show up for his visitation time with our son, and he regularly called and texted me, telling me I was a horrible mother for not letting him just come pick him up and take him to the park instead of the visitation center. 2 months later, and the calls and texts haven't stopped, I informed my attorney of the situation. She got us in for an emergency hearing. The next court date was set 6 months from the last one. Court date comes and my ex doesn't show up. The judge tells me they'll be sending a notice that his parental rights will be terminated if he doesn't comply with his court orders. Now it's the day of court again, and he actually shows up, but he's requested a DNA test to prove paternity because he believes our son is not biologically his. So that's the reason he didn't do his court orders. The judge accepted the request and said as soon as they get results, we'll be notified when the next court day is. Results finally came back and prove he's the father, but before the next court date, my ex's attorney says he's decided to relinquish his parental rights and doesn't want to move forward with the court. So the case is closed, and I have full custody. My ex's mom ends up taking me back to court to try and get grandparents' rights because she wants visitation and possibly overnight visits as well. The judge denies her request and tells her I've been the only one financially and physically responsible for the care of my son since he's been born, and it would be solely up to me if she has a relationship with him. This is where I feel like an idiot. My son is now a toddler, and she just contacted me asking if she could take her grandchild out for ice cream and a trip to the park. I asked what date she'd like us to spend time with her, and she said not me, just him and her. So I refused and said I'm uncomfortable with that because he doesn't know her. So now she and her son are both texting me, calling me selfish. So am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Her son gave up all parental rights. The court denied her a right to him, and you have all the legal rights over your child. So if she genuinely wants to see him and have a relationship with him, she'll just have to deal with you being there. 100% this. Grandma has no right to ask for unsupervised visitation, especially considering all the crap they put OP through in the first place. I would do the same, i.e. not allow her to see my child unless I was present at all times. The audacity of some people astounds me. I figure she wants to establish a relationship with her grandson so that she can file for grandparents' rights custody again. The other thing too, who's to say you allow this ice cream outing unsupervised? Next thing you know, she's up and disappears with your son. This is exactly what I thought the second she said she didn't want mom there. I'm generally not one to jump to conclusions, but first they wanted full custody. They showed blatant disregard for court orders by harassing you and refusing to comply with the ruling, and now she wants unsupervised time with your toddler? She's trying to kidnap your baby. Agree, open your eyes, OP. There are some crazy grandmas around. They're showing you again what kind of people you're dealing with, so please protect your kid from them, and don't ever let them be alone with your son until they show you that they've changed, which I doubt will ever happen. 100% this. Let the daycare, preschool, babysitters all know the names and faces of X and X's mom, so that they won't inadvertently allow your son to leave the grounds with them. Grandma's behavior is suspicious, and I wouldn't put anything past her. My teen female, dad 54, is married to Jacob, 50 male, and to be honest, I don't like Jacob, as he just annoys me. I don't know if they intentionally do what they do, or if they don't even realize they're doing it, but either way it makes me mad, which is why I dislike Jacob very much. I can never get alone time with just my mom and my dad, without Jacob being there. And I've said that I want my dad and mom there all the time, but it doesn't even matter to them, because Jacob just turns up either way. And yes, I've communicated with them about this, but it's like they don't even listen. Yesterday was supposed to be only me, my mom, and my dad going to an amusement park and my half-sister, Toddler, my mom's daughter. I told my dad and Jacob that I didn't want Jacob there, but guess what? He turned up anyways. Also, this event was for me, and it wasn't an event that was for the whole family. It was for me, and I only wanted my sister, mom, and dad to be there. I was angry when Jacob turned up, so instead of letting it go like I normally do, I lashed out at my dad and Jacob for Jacob being there. I told my dad that Jacob didn't always need to come along, and that he needed to stop bringing Jacob to my events, and I said I didn't want him to attend. My dad was pissed, and Jacob started crying, which only made me madder. Jacob is a grown man, and I talked to him about this, so it's not like he was clueless about the whole thing. So I didn't understand why he was crying, and maybe I was a bit harsh when I lashed out, but that was because I've been gentle with this many times, and I was just done with being gentle with them, so I lashed out. Not to mention my mom's paying for all of this, so she was also angry that Jacob just turned up when he wasn't supposed to be there. I never see my dad without Jacob being there, and it just gets so tiring when you can't even talk to your dad alone with his husband or wife being there. My mom and family are completely on my side, but my dad and Jacob are angry with me. So am I the idiot? Edit. I didn't plan this trip. My mom did and paid for everything. My mom was also angry that he turned up. You are the idiot for trying to play house with your mom and dad. They're not a couple. You cannot pretend they are. Your dad wants his husband around when he needs to be near your mom. That's fair. There's no reason why you need time with both your parents at the same time, to the exclusion of Jacob. They will never be a couple, and pretending they will be a couple isn't healthy for you. It sucks that your dad brought Jacob on this particular trip, but you suck because you clearly refused to give Jacob a chance. Like it or not, sweetheart, he's your new stepdad. Your relationship with your dad will only worsen if you refuse to respect his husband. You're old enough to know better. Not the idiot. Jacob wasn't invited. Your dad brought him when someone else's time, effort, and money went into planning this trip. I don't know what issue's going on that your dad always brings Jacob, but you've already discussed this with both, so it's about time that they listen to you. You deserve to spend time with your parents. I'm confused at some of the people here. OP is still a kid and can't get 5 minutes of alone time with her dad. She's vocalized the concern multiple times, and it sounds like he doesn't really care. Granted, I'm sure there's more to this story, but even without the provided context, Dad sounds like the idiot here. My husband, 39 male, and I, 35 female, have been married for 6 years. We don't have kids and don't plan on having any. That was a big point of contention with his parents, as his mom kept asking me when we would have kids. My husband finally told her he got a vasectomy, and she stopped asking, but all the nagging about it soured my relationship with his parents, especially his mom. About 9 months ago, my father-in-law passed away. It was pretty sudden and traumatic for my husband and his family. His mom is heartbroken, and I've been trying to sympathize with her and support her as best I can. A few months ago, my husband and his siblings convinced their mom to sell her home and move into a smaller apartment or townhome. She eventually relented, but I don't think she wanted to do it. Her home hasn't sold yet, but they've been moving all of her stuff into storage, and mother-in-law has been staying with her kids. She stayed with us twice, each for about 3 weeks. Those 2 visits were a nightmare for me. I hate having extended guests, and all this strenuous relationship with mother-in-law just got exacerbated. I know she's grieving, but she's not a pleasant person to be around right now, and I feel like she was taking a lot of her grief out on me personally. A couple of weeks ago, my husband took a long weekend along with his sister to take their mom on a trip to try and cheer her up. I used that time to myself to turn our guest room into a hobby room for me. My husband and I had been talking about doing that for years but never got around to it. So I finally took the initiative and got it started. It's not completely finished, but it's more of a hobby room than a guest room right now. When my husband got back, he didn't even notice. It took him almost a week before he finally saw what I did. He immediately blew up at me. He accused me of doing this behind his back so that mother-in-law couldn't stay with us anymore. I reminded him that we had been talking about this for years, so it's not like it's a surprise plan. I told her mother-in-law would be getting her own place soon, and she could just stay with his siblings until they got that stuff figured out. He told me that he knew me better than that, and he couldn't believe that I would be so underhanded and sneaky. He told me that this level of pettiness is not a good look, and he couldn't believe I would do something so juvenile. He told me that I should have asked his permission first, and I told him I didn't need his permission to do something in our home that we had talked about for years. He told me that I could try to lie to him all I wanted, but that he knew I did this out of spite against his mom. I told him that's ridiculous, and that he's letting his mom's grief cloud his judgment. He's been threatening to change the room back so that his mom can stay with us again, but I told him not to touch a single thing, and that he needs to focus that energy on figuring out his mom's long-term plans. You are the idiot, and yes, you absolutely did do this behind his back, so your mother-in-law can't stay with you anymore. Underhanded, sneaky, and disrespectful of your partner and your marriage. Your husband also lost his father. You know that, right? Why didn't you begin converting the guest room to a hobby room while your husband was at home if you weren't being dishonest? Sorry, but I'm not interested in what you're trying to sell because it doesn't smell right. She may be unpleasant, but she's grieving her husband, and now that home that probably held a lot of memories for her. Stop pretending to be the victim here. Mother-in-law lost her husband. She's losing her home. Your husband lost his father. The entire family's trying to sort out what to do, and you essentially evicted the woman from your home by commandeering the spare bedroom for your stuff. How selfish. How insensitive and self-centered. How petty and mean-spirited. Wow. My husband and I have been trying to have kids for 3 years. I've had a series of losses, and not a single pregnancy was successful. Our recent loss was a month ago, and although my husband never said anything up until now, this was a difficult time for me personally. The tension and emotions are overwhelming, and I've become too sensitive even if someone mentions the topic. He took me to his family's house for dinner last night, and his mom brought up my loss. The look of disappointment on her face made me lose my appetite completely. She went on and on about what may have caused it, and then my husband chimed in and said that he's starting to conclude that maybe I'm incapable of being a mom. I was floored for 2 reasons. One is that he'd even say such a thing. 2 is that no doctor has told me that there was something wrong with me specifically, so for him to declare I was incapable of bearing children and being a mom hurt like a sting. I looked at him and he was like, "What?" Then he told me not to get offended since he was being honest. He said he loves me and thinks I'm perfect, but still thinks that I'm flawed in that area, referring to motherhood. I had it at that point. I just got up from my seat, took my stuff, and headed for the door. I said nothing and just made my way out. He shouted at me, but I didn't stop. I went home and he came and started unloading on me about how immature, too sensitive, and ridiculous I was. He said he was giving his honest opinion about the matter, and I have no right to police the words that come out of his mouth. Whether I like what I'm hearing or not, it's still the truth. We argued some, then we stopped talking altogether. He keeps saying I exaggerated and walked out during dinner and disrespected him and his family over literally nothing. I'm unsure if I handled this the right way or yet acted out of emotions. Am I the idiot? Your next words to him should be, "To be the best mother to my future kids, I probably need to shed some pounds. How much do you weigh again?" And then leave his dumb butt. Honestly, he's trash. And if his own family didn't react disgusted at what he says, then you know where he got it. Not the idiot. You deserve better. I'm almost speechless. I am so very sorry for your loss and heartache. Before you consider another try, I think you may want to reevaluate whether this is the man you want to parent with forever. His insensitivity is outrageous, and then he doubled down by attacking again at home behind his interpretation of the truth. What a total idiot. Please consider counseling for yourself, for your grief and frustration, and to determine whether you really want to continue with this abusive bore. Genuinely, I don't believe there's such a thing as too sensitive when it comes to your own loss. Seriously, and what your husband said wasn't the truth. It was his evil, crappy opinion that he should have never ever voiced aloud to you. Do not have kids with this man. He's probably the type that's just brutally honest. God, I hate those people. Your mother-in-law was wrong to bring it up. It's not for group discussion. I hope you know this, but you didn't cause your loss, and your mother-in-law shouldn't have implied you did. How quickly his family looked at you as the apparent cause is how quickly you should consider finding a better husband. OP, you've not handled it the right way. The right way is to change the locks, send him to mom and divorce him. Honesty without kindness is cruelty. No one deserves to be treated like that. I live in a flat in a building owned by my ex's parents because they like me and my ex asked them to. They only charge me around 5% of the price it would cost me to rent it from them. I've been dating my boyfriend for almost 2 years, and he asked to move in with me after he found out my ex moved back to London and was living in the same building as me. While I would love to live with him, I also know it would mean we would pay the full rent amount, which is just not affordable for me, even with him paying half. In addition, I don't want to move to another location because this flat is fantastic and I doubt I'll ever be able to live here again, so I want to enjoy it until I can't anymore. When I told him no, my boyfriend got super angry at me because he thought I was lying about the rent going up if he moved in, and he also told me I couldn't keep leeching from my ex's family my whole life when I wouldn't change my mind. Am I the idiot? What's the end game here? You've been together for 2 years. Wanting to live together at this point is pretty normal. However, I wouldn't be comfortable being in a relationship for 2 years where we couldn't progress to the next step, living together, because of an ex subsidizing of my partner's living situation. On the other hand, I can't fault you for not wanting to give it up, but it may be at the expense of your current relationship. I just thought that. I wouldn't want to wait around for my partner for that long. Plus, moving in is basically a test run to see if you're compatible for the long haul. So she's kind of wasting both their time, honestly. OP, you're basically being paid by your ex's family, never to progress romantically. I think your boyfriend is more serious about you than you are about him, but you may want to reconsider what your flat is costing you here. If I were OP, I 100% wouldn't move in with him. Living together is a massive step in any relationship. Do it because it feels right and both parties want to. The boyfriend can voice his concerns, many of which are valid, but living together solely because the boyfriend is jealous that the ex lives nearby is a recipe for disaster. Let's be generous and say he trusts his girlfriend. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. The problem is he doesn't trust the ex, who clearly isn't over her. Nobody gives an ex an essentially $1,000 plus check every month because of friends. Nobody. Likely the next time the boyfriend and girlfriend fights, the ex is at her door with a gallon of ice cream, a bottle of wine, and a shoulder to cry on. There's a reason couples have boundaries where exes are concerned.